He slapped me. In front of 40 guests, 3 tiers of cake, and a banner that said Happy 68th Nancy. He slapped me so hard my earring flew off and landed in the potato salad. And the room went dead silent, until the front door opened and my brother, the one they all said was too broken to ever show his face again, walked in wearing his old army jacket and said, "Who just put their hands on my sister?" Before I tell you what happened next, I want to say hello. My name is Nancy, I'm 68 years old. And if you're the kind of person who believes that karma sometimes needs a little push from a woman who's done being quiet, hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one, because trust me, this family had more surprises coming. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from tonight. I read every single one, and it means the world to me to know who's sitting with me while I tell this. Now let me back up, because you need to understand who I was before that slap so you understand who I became after it. I raised 3 children mostly alone. My husband, Walter, passed when our youngest was only 11, and I never remarried. I worked 31 years as a school cafeteria manager, which doesn't sound glamorous, but let me tell you, feeding 400 children a day while raising 3 of your own teaches you things no business degree ever could. Teaches you patience. It teaches you how to stretch a dollar until it screams. And it teaches you how to read a room, who's hungry, who's hiding something, who's about to cause trouble before they even open their mouth. My oldest daughter, Lisa, was the one I worried about least. She'd married a man named Craig 15 years ago. And from the outside, they looked like the golden couple. Big house, 2 cars in the driveway, a son in private school. Craig worked in something with real estate investments. I never fully understood what, and looking back, I don't think I was supposed to. He had this way of talking that made you feel foolish for asking questions. Smooth. Charming at parties. The kind of man who remembers your birthday but somehow never remembers to pay you back. I'd loaned Craig money twice over the years. Once for a temporary cash flow issue, which turned out to be $11,000. Once for what he called bridging a deal, another 6. Neither time did I see a cent of it back, and neither time did Lisa know the full truth, because Craig always asked me privately, always with that same line. Just between us, Nancy. I don't want Lisa to worry. I should have known then. But you don't want to believe the man your daughter loves is capable of using you. You want to believe love is enough armor for everyone in the family. It isn't. I learned that the hard way on the worst night of my life, which also turned out to be one of the best. My birthday that year was supposed to be small. Just family, a backyard party, some lights strung up, the kind of gathering where you eat too much potato salad and somebody's dog steals a hot dog off a plate. Lisa insisted on hosting it. She said, "Mom, 68 deserves a real celebration. You never let us do anything for you." And honestly, that touched me. Because it's true. I never let anyone fuss over me. I was always the one fussing over everyone else. I got there in my good blue dress, the one I only wear for church and funerals, because I figured a birthday should count as a special occasion too. My grandson ran up and hugged my legs before I even got through the gate. There were balloons. There was a banner. There was a table with 3 bean salad and a sheet cake with my name misspelled. Nancy, if you can believe it. And I laughed about it because that's what you do at 68. You laugh about the small stuff because you've learned the hard way what the big stuff actually looks like. Everything was fine for the first hour. People were eating, my younger son Aaron was telling some story about his coworker that had everyone in stitches, and I was sitting in a lawn chair someone had draped with a ribbon that said "Birthday Queen," feeling for once in my life taken care of. Then Craig came over. He had a drink in his hand, and something in his face had changed. Tight around the eyes. I knew that look. I'd seen it the 2 times before he asked me for money. He crouched down next to my chair, all smiles for the crowd, and said quietly, "Nancy, I need to talk to you about something. Business thing. Won't take long." I told him this wasn't the time. It was my birthday, for heaven's sake. And I was tired of business things that always seemed to end with my bank account a little lighter. His smile didn't move, but his voice did. "It's important. It's about the house. Now I need to explain something here. 3 years earlier, after Walter passed and I sold our old place, I'd put a good chunk of that money, not all of it but a good chunk, into a rental property with Craig. It was supposed to be an investment for my retirement. My name was on the paperwork. That was the one thing I made sure of, because even trusting a man like Craig, some instinct in me said, "Protect yourself, Nancy. Get your name on it." Craig leaned in and told me, right there at my own birthday party, that he'd sold the property. Without telling me. Without my signature, he claimed, because he'd had a lawyer friend handle the paperwork differently. His words, not mine. He said the money was already gone, already reinvested somewhere else, and that I'd thank him later once it paid off. I stood up so fast my lawn chair tipped over. I said, "You sold my house?" Without asking me? And Craig, in front of my grandson, in front of my other children, in front of neighbors I'd known for 20 years, rolled his eyes and said, "Nancy, don't make a scene. This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you. You always overreact. Overreact." He stole from me and called my anger an overreaction. I said some things back. I won't repeat all of them because a lady doesn't always need to, but I will tell you I used the word thief, and I used it loud enough for the whole yard to hear. And that's when he slapped me, open hand hard across my left cheek. My head snapped sideways. My earring, the little gold hoops Walter gave me for our 20th anniversary, flew clean off and landed in the bowl of potato salad sitting 3 feet away. There was this silence you could feel in your teeth. My grandson started crying. Lisa's hands flew to her mouth. Aaron dropped his paper plate. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. I stood there with my hand pressed to my burning cheek, 68 years old, in my good blue dress on my own birthday, and for one terrible second, I felt exactly the way I did the day Walter's doctor told me he wasn't coming home from the hospital. Small. Alone. Like the ground had opened underneath me, and nobody was going to reach down and pull me back up. And that's the exact moment the gate creaked open, and my brother Frank walked in. Now, you need to know something about Frank before I go further. Frank is 4 years older than me. He served 2 tours overseas when he was young, and he came home different, quieter, harder to reach, prone to disappearing for months at a time. Our family had a complicated history with Frank. There'd been a falling out almost a decade back, over money Frank borrowed and never paid back during a rough patch, and pride being what it is in our family, neither of us had reached out since. I sent a card every Christmas. He never answered. I honestly didn't think he'd come to my birthday. I'd invited him out of habit more than hope. But there he was in his old army jacket, hair grayer than I remembered, standing in the gate with a wrapped gift under one arm, and he had seen the whole thing. He'd walked in at the exact second Craig's hand connected with my face. Frank set the gift down on the ground, slow and deliberate, like a man setting down a weapon he didn't need anymore because his hands were about to be otherwise occupied. He looked at Craig, then at me, then back at Craig, and he said, in a voice I hadn't heard him use since we were kids and some boy at school pushed me off the swing set, "Who just put their hands on my sister?" Craig, to his credit, or maybe just his cowardice, actually took a step back. He started saying something about it being a family misunderstanding, about how I'd been hysterical, about how it wasn't what it looked like. Frank didn't raise his voice again. He didn't need to. He walked straight up to Craig, close enough that Craig had to look up at him, and said, "I've been in rooms with men a lot scarier than you, son. I know exactly what it looked like. You hit a 68-year-old woman at her own birthday party. Now you're going to explain to everyone here why. And here's the part that still gives me chills when I think about it." Frank didn't throw a punch. He didn't need to. He just turned to the crowd, to my other children, to the neighbors, to my grandson standing there with tears streaming down his face, and he said, "Somebody want to tell me what business deal is worth hitting your own mother-in-law over?" That's when Lisa found her voice. And what came out of her wasn't just shock. It was the sound of a woman putting pieces together in real time. Pieces she'd probably been avoiding for years. She turned to Craig and said, "What house? What is he talking about, Craig?" And just like that, in front of everyone, it all came pouring out. The 2 previous loans I'd never told her about because Craig begged me not to. The rental property with my name supposedly forged off the deed. The fact that Craig's real estate ventures hadn't been going well for over a year, and that he'd apparently been quietly liquidating whatever he could get his hands on to cover it, including, as it turned out over the following weeks, a chunk of Lisa's own retirement account, moved without her knowledge into an account he controlled. I want to pause here and tell you something important. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't come to that party looking for a confrontation. I came for cake and to feel, just for one evening, like the woman who raised 3 kids alone deserved a little celebration. But sometimes life hands you the truth at the worst possible moment, wrapped in the worst possible way, and all you can do is decide what you're going to do once it's sitting there in front of you, in the potato salad with your earring still stuck to it. What I decided to do was press charges for the assault. Not because I wanted revenge in some dramatic sense, but because I realized, standing there with my cheek still stinging, that if I let this go, if I smoothed it over the way I'd smoothed over everything else for years, for the sake of keeping the peace, for the sake of not overreacting, I would be teaching my grandson that this is what love looks like. That you swallow it. That you apologize for the man who hurt you. I was not going to teach that little boy that lesson. Not at 68 years old. Not after everything I'd already survived. The following weeks were not simple. Lisa filed for divorce within the month. Once the full financial picture came out, turns out the rental property sale Craig described wasn't even legal, and a lawyer Frank knew from his old unit, who now practiced family and elder law, helped me untangle the mess and get a judgment against Craig for what he'd taken from me. It won't all come back. Some of it never will. But I got enough back to matter, and more importantly, I got something back that no settlement could buy. My daughter looking at me, really looking at me the way she used to when she was small and thought I could fix anything. Frank and I talked more in that 1 month than we had in the previous 8 years combined. Turns out he'd been struggling more than any of us knew. Work had dried up, pride had kept him from asking for help, and he'd almost skipped my party entirely, sitting in his truck outside for 20 minutes trying to talk himself into walking through that gate. He told me later, over coffee at my kitchen table, the same table Walter used to sit at every morning, that some part of him walked in that day because he had a feeling that I needed him. He said, "I don't believe in a lot anymore, Nancy, but I believe in that. I believe in it too now." As for Craig, last I heard, he'd moved 2 states away, and my grandson sees him on scheduled visits now, supervised for the first several months per the court's recommendation. I don't wish the man ruin. I'm not that kind of person even after everything. But I do believe with my whole heart that consequences are not cruelty. Consequences are just the truth catching up to you. I think about that earring sometimes. The one that flew into the potato salad. Lisa found it after everyone had gone home that night, washed it off and gave it back to me in a little box the next morning. She said, "Mom, I should have listened to you years ago when you seemed uncomfortable around him." I'm sorry I didn't. And I told her what I'm going to tell you now because I think it matters more than the rest of this story combined. It is never too late to believe someone who tells you, in whatever small way they can, that something is wrong. Not at 28. Not at 58. Not at 68, standing in your good blue dress with your cheek on fire and your earring in the potato salad. The truth has its own timing, and sometimes it walks through the gate wearing an old army jacket. Right when you need it most. I wear those gold hoops every single day now. Not because of what happened to them, but because of what they remind me of, that even on the worst night, even when someone you trusted humiliates you in front of everyone you love, you are allowed to stand back up. You are allowed to say enough. And sometimes, the family member everyone gave up on is the one who shows up exactly when you need him to remind you that you were never as alone as they wanted you to feel. If this story moved you even a little, I'd love for you to like this video and subscribe because I've got more stories to share. Some happier, some harder, but all of them true to who I am and what I've lived through. Drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from tonight. I read everyone, and honestly, hearing from you is one of the best parts of doing this. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and don't ever let anyone convince you that standing up for yourself is an overreaction. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you'll do all year.